And so you are looking at the Nevada County Coalition of Firewise Communities website. I hope you all know that this is here because it's got a lot of good stuff on it. And this is our website address, which stands for Nevada County Coalition of Firewise Communities. You could put .org and it would redirect here, so don't worry about that. But what we're just talking about today, we are sort of highlighting one resource per month of something that's on the website that you may have forgotten about. And under this here, we're going to be reorganizing some things soon, but right here under All County Education Event, which is something we did last year, we had a section called Red Flag Day, Organize Your Time, which was, and we're going to be hearing from Matt again tonight. This is a 15-minute YouTube of his presentation last year. Tonight's might be similar, I'm not sure, and Matt can let us know about that. This is a very interesting, I'm gonna just click on that and show you what that looks like. These may be his slides again tonight, or they may be different. So, but there's good information there on what to do when you get an evacuation warning. And then here's the exact same thing as what you just saw on the slides that I showed you, but it's in a printable PDF format. CAL FIRE has something similar. These are all sorts of things like, if you're actually evacuating, let's say you've got 15 minutes to a half an hour, what's your checklist? And these are, you don't have to make this stuff up. It's all here. I think CAL FIRE might be a little redundant, but we included it anyway, and you can take a look at that. And the last thing I want to show you is a checklist from Marin County. They have a very active Firewise community organization over there. And they have a very comprehensive checklist of everything. It's like front and back. And it's something that you can print out. And we might even look into getting permission to redo it with our own logo on it here. But for now, you could print this out front and back, maybe put it in a sheet protector, hang it on the closet door in your front room. And it's your checklist for what to do when you have to be leaving. So those are our resources of the month here, but I do encourage you to look around. If you do come to our website, we've got all kinds of good stuff here, resources, and we have the event from last year. And we'll be covering some of these as resources of the month in the future. Just wanted you to know, don't get overwhelmed by all of the stuff that's out there. There is so much, but we try and feature just the best of it here so that you know exactly what to do and don't get overwhelmed. Back to you, Scott.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Susan. Good resources there, so please check those out and know where to find those after this session today. Moving on to our partner reports, starting with CAL FIRE. Matt, is that you, or you got Jim speaking tonight?
I'm here. I'll start off, and then we'll go to Matt's presentation later. Good afternoon, evening, everybody. Jim Mathias, North Division Chief for CAL FIRE Nevada Yuba Placer Unit. And I want to remind you about the first slide that you saw as we opened this video. It's really something special we have here in Nevada County. If you looked at that slide, you saw Penn Valley Fire Engine. It was taken out of the window of Matt Wallen's pickup truck while he was running that incident yesterday. There was a sheriff's department in the background, and Smartsville Fire's chief vehicle was also in the background. It's a cooperative relationship, and there's our CAL FIRE hand crew walking up to the fire line. You just don't find that everywhere, and I just want to stress how important that cooperative relationship is. And so we're all in this together. None of us have a whole bunch of extra resources, so we throw everything at it together. And I just think it's special. And just another example is like Bob Jakobs and his team. They found a guy who had stolen a calendar. Remember that, Bob? And then you told me, yeah, that guy got 12 months for that. Get it? You said there was the NBJ, the no bad jokes, was not in effect. It was the other one that you used. So anyway, there's that. So that's what I got for tonight. As far as activities, let's get down to the serious report. We had 207 more acres this time at this time this year than we had at this time last year burned in the Nevada Yuba Placer unit. Just in our unit, 207 acres more, with 23 more vegetation fires than we had at this time last year. So we're on our way for a record-setting year. And if you can remember last year, we blew away any other record ever established by wildfire last year. So it was just a horrific year last year, and we're on track to beat that. We enforced the burn ban starting on May 24th. So you can't burn piles anymore. So please be real careful with your fire. Even if you want to go out and toast marshmallows or whatever, just use some extreme caution. It's really not a good year to do that. We're already going to be stretched pretty thin. And I just want to tell you that we are in some very dry days. We are in some drought conditions. The snowpack early May was at 23%. I've heard reports that it's all the way down to 2% right now. So we are not going to have a lot of water to refill our reservoirs. And the fuel moistures out there are at the lowest we've ever recorded them right now. So that means that even the big trees all the way down to the grass is drier. And that, we were talking about that picture again, and it was super dry early in the year. We're seeing tree mortality that we just haven't seen in this area before. We talked about it 3 to 5 years ago down south of us. Well, it's starting to come back up our way. If there was some good news about all that's happening, is our grass crop is significantly lower. We haven't had a lot of moisture to develop that grass crop, which again is a good and bad. The good to it is that there's less grass out there to burn. But the bad news is there's plenty of grass out there to burn. There's plenty of grass to catch those embers. There's plenty to carry a fire to the brush, which will deliver it to the trees and to your homes. So although the grass is only 3 feet high instead of 6 feet high, it still poses a significant risk. And now is not the time to go out and start trimming grass with a lawnmower or a metal bladed device of any kind. And maybe it's just too late to do that. So we would be normally encouraging you out to go out and create defensible space, any means that you could right now at this time of year. But people will go out and they'll try to do the right thing the wrong way right now. And just in the afternoon and evenings, it's certainly not safe to have those mechanized pieces of equipment out there. You don't think, I've never heard of anybody who said, I meant to go out and mow the lawn and hit a rock. You don't want to do it because it does damage to your equipment. What it also does is it creates an ember and a spark, and it sends that fire rolling. And we are getting just a ton of spot fires out ahead of our main fires right now. And what that tells us is that any little ember can start a fire. So if we're having trouble with spot fires, I can assure you that you will have trouble with spot fires on your fire. So don't do the right thing the wrong way. We want you to reduce fuels, but do it very safely with not creating any kind of spark or ember. As far as grant funding, we still are in the dark with what's going to happen with our fire prevention grants and our forest health grant fundings. I haven't heard a final word with the May revise in the budget being signed into law. We are very hopeful that we didn't get any money last year, so we're hoping that that will carry over to this year, that we'll get 2 years worth of money. And with the surplus that's been announced in the state budget, it seems reasonable to think that we would get 2 years, which could equate up to as much as $200 million. And it sounds like a lot of money, but for the whole state, that'll go pretty quickly. So we're hopeful for that, but we don't have any for sure words on that. CAL FIRE is currently at peak staffing. We have hired all of our firefighters. We have a few stragglers that we're going to hire in a couple of weeks, but for the most part, we are staffing our 22 engines, our 3 dozers, our 5 hand crews, and our 5 battalion chiefs every day at a minimum. That's the minimum staffing that we have. So we're in full force, and our last rehire academy is happening this week. That'll let out at 5 o'clock on Friday, and all those folks will be out to their stations and ready for fire season. So we should be at full strength by this weekend. Grass Valley Air Attack Base is up and running. I think that anybody's been paying attention, you've seen our air tankers flying around. We do have our air attack, which is basically the air traffic controller and the operations director up in the sky that's directing the aerial forces on the firefight. And then we have 2 tankers that we're supposed to have at Grass Valley Air Attack Base. We currently only have one tanker. Our second tanker has been through maintenance, but what that tanker is doing is helping out our other bases up and down the state of California that have some maintenance issues that they're still working on. So we're expected to have that second tanker at Grass Valley by the 14th of June. We should be in pretty good shape by then. Also, our lookouts are up and staffed, and so you'll hear those folks up there doing a great job for us. And they're volunteers, and they're overwatching to keep your community safe. So if you see any of those or know any of those folks, please thank them for the good job that they do. It's a very hot, uncomfortable job sitting up in a tower all day, but they are one of your first lines of defense, and we really appreciate their work. So that's what's going on with CAL FIRE, and just a big shout out to the Sheriff's Department. I can't tell you how special it is in Nevada County to have cooperators like those folks that are Johnny on the spot when it comes time for getting you folks notified there's a fire in your area. They were in a very remote area yesterday and mustered up some forces very quickly, and we're ready to go. And right there, standing beside Matt running the incident, and it's just a great relationship. So that's it for me. Thanks for your time, and everybody, and thanks for my job.
Cool. Thanks so much, Chief Matthias. We appreciate your time and you being here despite everything else that's going on out there in your world these days. Moving on to Nevada County Consolidated Fire. Did I see Patrick Mason?
Yes, sir. Patrick Mason. I'm the Deputy Fire Marshal with Nevada County Consolidated Fire District. Just to touch on one thing Chief Matthias was talking about with those metal implements. One other thing is metal rakes. Just try and avoid raking across gravel, concrete, and the dry grass with the metal rakes. Those also create sparks as you're trying to clean up your yard. So this past Saturday, had the opportunity to attend a road association meeting down in Lost Lake, the Greenhorn Firewise community. Had a very good meeting down there. One of the points that did come up that I think is definitely worth passing on here is the question about clearing vegetation along private roads. Why is it so important? Why is it such a community event? And I can't stress enough that we all have the local knowledge, but it's not to say that our local fire crews are going to be here if a fire breaks out. It is not uncommon at all to have cover engines from CAL FIRE from the south side of the state up here who don't know the local knowledge, who haven't been out these roads. And when they show up, they're just sent to a road, and we could have the best park-like opening a mile back in this road, but if the beginning of it is overgrown, it just looks horrible to go past. We're not going to commit our crews because we don't want to get ourselves trapped in there. So that's the big reason why it's just such a big community event when we're clearing the vegetation off these roads. Excuse me. DSI stats up to date. Currently, right now, we're sitting at about 768 total inspections for the defensible space inspectors for Nevada County OES. And out of those 768, we're getting about an 80% compliance rate, which is just absolutely fabulous. That's people coming into compliance prior to any citations. That's the education and getting people out there clearing their yards. So pretty positive about that. And we're still up running full, and a lot of proactive inspections. We've done 185 of those this year, where last year we didn't have any proactive. It was just all complaint driven. So we're out there a lot more, and hopefully getting that education piece out there. That's what I got.
All right. Thank you so much. Paul Cummings, Nevada County Office of Emergency Services. Do you have anything for us now, Paul, or are we saving you till later?
I got a couple program updates. If can you hear me okay, Scott?
Loud and clear.
I'm out at the park. My kids started swim season, so excuse my unprofessional background. So quick update.
We're just jealous.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I do want to say Green Waste has been going really well. Thanks to the community for getting out there. Thanks at the neighborhood level for doing the work and for encouraging your neighbors to take that green waste and get it dropped off. So we've been seeing high participation. I want to thank the Fire Safe Council want to thank the volunteers. I want to thank the coalition for really so far in this season having a really great green waste event. So we've had them on the east side and on the west side of the county. We had them in May. There is another weekend planned for June 11th and 14th on the west side, and then June 18th and 19th for the free mulch pickup. And then on the east side, June 4th, which is coming up, and then June 25th at the rodeo grounds. And so on the west side, that's at the 12625 Brunswick Road, I guess the Rise Gold mine site. So again, thanks to all of you who've made that happen so far. Very pleased with that. OES did support the Hutto fire yesterday. We opened our EOC. We supported the sheriff's office with some of the Zonehaven and Code Red messaging, and we did open up we had a shelter on standby in the event it was needed. Thankfully, it wasn't. So again, I think the public should be encouraged. A lot of collaboration, as Chief Matthias said, between county, law, and fire to make sure the public is being supported during these events. I think Chief Matthias already alluded to the fact that things are really dry out there. Last week, I brought forward to the County Board of Supervisors an emergency proclamation for the drought. The county is in an extreme drought, which is about as bad as it gets. Very little rainfall, and it's just exacerbating some of our fire conditions, and it's potentially going to affect our public safety power shutoff season as well, because the tree health, just may not be there, and it's going to potentially threaten PG&E's infrastructure. So we're going to watch out for that. OES is working with many of the partners on the call to participate in a tabletop exercise with the Lake Wildwood community on June 9th. Again, I think that should just be encouraging to the public. It's going to give us all an opportunity to continue to practice and refine our processes as we work together to prepare for what we hope doesn't happen, a large-scale fire and evacuation in our community.
Paul,
Lastly,
could you explain the difference between OES and EOC for people who are new to our meeting here?
Sorry, and I broke Scott's rule about the acronyms. So the Office of Emergency Services is the county office that oversees the hazard mitigation that we do in our community. That's going to be the grant work, the planning, and then a sub-element of that is our Emergency Operations Center that we open up during events. So yesterday, we opened up virtually to support the unmet needs that were likely to come out of a large-scale fire and an evacuation. And the Emergency Operations Center is actually a physical place in the county building where we have county staff that come together to support everything from, we stood up for COVID, for wildfire evacuations, if there were a dam that were to break, flooding, we're there to support the first responders and the community with unmet needs. Last thing I've got, OES did partner with the Fire Safe Council to submit 3 grants to CAL FIRE, as Chief Matthias alluded to some of the grant opportunities for the large hazardous vegetation reduction projects. And so one of those was for an extension to the Ponderosa project. One was for a South County fuel break, and the last was for the South Yuba Rim fuel break, which is going to be the north end of the county. And I can maybe go into greater detail at another meeting on those projects. So again, lots of great partnerships there. Fingers crossed, and we'll see what kind of opportunities those grant applications bring forward. And that's all I've got until it's my turn again. Back to you, Scott.
Thanks so much, Paul. Thanks for being here and sharing your family time with us. From Fire Safe Council in Nevada County, is Board Chair Don Thane here, or anyone from Fire Safe Council? Anyone?
Yeah,
Jamie?
I'm getting on here, Scott, just a second.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I was
There you
hoping
go.
Pat would report out here, but basically, yeah, like Paul said, the great success on the green waste drop off. And again, June is the next one coming up. Pat, are you able to get on here?
Yes.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and report out for the Fire Safe Council?
Okay, I'll add to the green waste information. These are very early numbers, but it looks like We had over 2,200 loads from 1,700 individuals, participants, and that's estimating to be over 2,000 cubic yards. I know they're trying to figure out the tonnage on that, but the math is too much for me, so I'll just move on. That was extremely well done, and we are looking for additional participation from everyone. It's highly successful. The fire season newspaper should be coming out in July, and just looking for current agency information, any changes that want to be made. I asked Jamie to just go ahead and take the night off. She has been a champion for us. And besides the 3 grants that Paul mentioned, I think she might have applied for another 3 grants. So we're partnering with YWY and of course the county, CAL FIRE, and there could be a FEMA grant in there too, trying to keep all of our programs running. And it seems to me that that could be over $20 million if we were successful in everything. So that would keep us going quite well. Our chipping program right now is out 8 weeks. We do apologize, but the problem is we only have 2 crews. I do believe we have a 3rd crew coming on very soon. But the Fire Safe Council is hiring. We are still looking for additional staff, including, would be nice to have someone in the office answering the phones as all of us are out and about taking care of things. We do try to answer the calls from our cell phones, but sometimes we're getting 4 calls while we're answering 1. So we don't seem to be getting ahead of the curve here. There are now 59 Firewise communities in Nevada County. And tomorrow I'll be up in Truckee and hopefully wrapping up a few more up there. Let's see. So the last thing I'd like to do is give you a little commercial. We have a tactical bag now that comes loaded with water resistant and a fire resistant document bag, a wonderful cup, battery, USB, and another thumb drive that has all kinds of important information on there. And the first 50 people that sign up for it will also get this marvelous little radio that works quite nicely. Is a flashlight, wind up, solar powered, and there's a battery compartment there too. So that's available for the membership for $249, but there's over $150 worth of swag in there. And for the $100, we have the simple bag, the list, these 2 other products, and the emergency document holder. The tactical bag has 3 compartments that you can separate. So it's really nice in case you need to have medications or some other things that you want to be able to carry and not carry everything with you all the time. I only mention it because I have been asked a number of times if we still have the $49 membership, and yes, we do. It might not be accessible on the website right now, but it is available. It's for priority chipping only, and it's for returning members. So that's what I have for tonight. Thank you very much, Scott.
Yeah.
Thanks, Pat, and Don for.
Yeah, thanks, Pat. You know, the go bag that Pat just displayed there is really an excellent place to just put your stuff. And like Pat said, there's some really important information. Like there's a a special pouch for putting special papers in. There's the tag, the county tag that you put on the door. Billy and Jamie and Pat really took a lot of time and put together a very, very comprehensive go bag that I highly recommend it. In fact, I've got my name on the list to buy one myself. That it's really a great thing that, you know, it's part of the membership drive, but it's also a really handy thing for everybody to have. I know there's a memory stick in there for putting documents on. I'm trying to remember what else, Pat, but I was just impressed at how much really comprehensive go bag stuff is available in this $250 that's offered by the Fire Safe Council.
All right, thanks, Don. All right, that wraps up our partner reports. We are moving on to our monthly education piece. So for those of you who have not participated before, good to take a big high-level look here at our mission. So the coalition promotes fire safety through advocacy, education, and community involvement with other stakeholders interested in working towards stronger fire safety practices. So again, big piece of that is the education and you know, working towards those fire safety practices. So we have 3 good speakers up for you tonight. I'm going to hand it over to Lieutenant Bob Jakobs with Nevada County Sheriff's Office. We do have a lot of content, so Lieutenant Jakobs, just a reminder, we do have about 15 minutes on the clock for you.
Great, thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Appreciate you having me on tonight. Good evening, everybody. Lieutenant Bob Jakobs. I work for the Sheriff's Office here in Nevada County. I am assigned currently to the county's Office of Emergency Services as the Emergency Operations Coordinator. One of the main roles that I serve here in this capacity is everything related to evacuation, so the entire evacuation mission. Tonight, I get to present about one of our latest tools that we are releasing to the public that we've just recently made operational and that we are pushing out to the public to become familiar with. But before I go into my presentation, I have a quick video that I want to show. So I'm going to screen share here real quick and show you guys a video that OES just recently put together. And we literally just launched this within the last couple of hours. And I want to show it to you tonight as kind of a premiere.
Nevada County has a new tool to make evacuations safer and more efficient in the event of an emergency. This new tool is called Zonehaven, and we need you to know your zone.
In order to know your zone, you need to go to community.zonehaven.com, type in your address. Once your address populates in the pop-up window, take that information and write down the zone that is given to you where you know you'll find it in case of emergency.
Zonehaven and knowing your zone does not replace Nixle and or Code Red. It actually supplements them, and it makes those tools more powerful because you will know what zones are being evacuated or which ones are being placed on advisory. And as a result, you won't have to do anything else other than listen to those messages and know if it's time to go.
Even if you don't have internet, this could be done by word of mouth, it can be done by radio, or it could be us driving down the street, so please know your zone.
From Truckee to Lake of the Pines, from Chicago Park to Spencerville, every single square mile of Nevada County has a zone. And having a zone that you know for your neighborhood is going to help you save time to be able to evacuate and keep you and your family safe.
All right. So that's our new video for you guys. Like I said, we just launched that within the last couple of hours. It's up on our social media pages if you want to watch it. I can also drop into the chat a direct link for it on YouTube. So that's Zonehaven. One of the things I'd like to point out about that video, Something that Chief Matthias already touched on, but it's that partner collaboration. It's that agencies working together. That's the one thing that strikes me the most about this video is really you see all of our law enforcement agencies represented in this video, as well as CAL FIRE, because that's what it takes to be successful with wildfire this day. It's everybody working together. So I was very proud that we could get all these agencies together to help us put together this quick video that we can push out and really get that message out there that we want folks to start learning their zone. So Scott, can you still see my screen with the PowerPoint?
Yep, zone-based evacuations.
Great. All right, so what is zone-based evacuation? So the zone concept is essentially we've taken Nevada County and we've broken it up like a puzzle. In particular here, we have 250 zones in Nevada County that we've broken into these manageable geographic evacuation zones, and we've given them all a unique number. These zone boundaries were based on a number of factors that we took into consideration. Topography, roadway architecture, how many routes in and out, population, those sorts of things. And we've actually been working the last few months with a host of different public safety agencies here in Nevada County to really dial in those zones, making sure that they were right for our community, that they weren't too big, they weren't too small, but they were, again, manageable. What are the benefits of a zone-based evacuation system? Well, number one, the biggest benefit is that it provides clearer public messaging around the where. That's always a huge question. When we start issuing evacuations in our community, everybody wants to know where is the evacuation taking place and are they affected? A system like this really simplifies that communication, because instead of us putting out a long list of roads or neighborhoods that are under evacuation, and you have to go through that list and really scour it to see if your road or your neighborhood is listed, you no longer have to do that. We're going to be messaging out what zone is being evacuated. And if you already know your zone, then you're going to immediately know. If you don't know your zone, we're going to provide you quick ways to figure out what zone you're in so that you can heed those messages that we're pushing out. We no longer have the delays in creating these evacuation boundaries on the fly. Last year during the Jones fire, we saw the challenges associated with doing that, where folks have to be huddled around either the back of a fire pickup truck or in a larger incident command post and have discussions about where are the boundaries of this evacuation, where are we going to make them. We've taken a lot of that process out of it because we've done a lot of that work ahead of time. So it really does speed up the process of managing the evacuations. We're also able to put things in the internal side of this program that help us out as law and fire managers for managing the evacuation. And that's knowing where some of our critical infrastructures are. That could be simple things like schools and daycares, just understanding where those are and how many folks may be in those locations. We can also put in there potential traffic control points so that it gives our first responders that quick heads up about which intersections we know are going to be impacted greatly the second that we start evacuating people. So it's definitely a benefit to just know ahead of time what's in these zones and put it in a program where our folks can get to it easily and see it. So how did we do this? We partnered with a private software company named Zonehaven. They've been in business for a few years now, and they've been working in the San Francisco Bay Area quite a bit and in Southern Oregon. We partnered with them late last year. We were introduced to them by CAL FIRE. They actually brought Zonehaven to our attention in August, right around the time of the Jones fire. And we worked with them through the remainder of 2020 to really dial in what it is we wanted Zonehaven to do for us here in Nevada County. They were able to secure a grant on their own that paid for the development of this program here in Nevada County for 2 years. So we get to take advantage of that grant cost-free for 2 years. And they've been a great partner with us thus far. They basically took the zone concept and they put it up in a cloud-based system online to where not only we can use it internally, but now we can project that same information out to the public on a public facing site. And here are the two different sides of the program, essentially. We have an internal side called EVAC. That's where your law enforcement and your fire managers, we work in this system. We'll be working in this system constantly every day, whether we're in fire season or not. refining our evacuation plans and putting more information in there, and just simply going back, and whether it's training or simulations, we'll be working in that system year round. The public facing side of Zonehaven is what they refer to as Aware. And these two systems are linked. The information that we input into our side can be pushed real time, so the public can see exactly what we need them to see, and in a timely manner. So in the evacuation management platform EVAC, where we work as fire and law managers, there's really 3 different modules to this system. The first one is prepare. That's where we go in, we initially design these zones, and then we put a bunch of information in there about the traffic control points and critical infrastructures like I talked about. There's also a module for training. So we can run simulations. We can simulate a fire, and then we can share this information with other agencies. You no longer have to necessarily be in the same room with somebody to do this training. The system is designed for virtual environments, so we can invite a host of different agencies, and we can really develop kind of those response techniques and share this information rapidly. And then, of course, the last and most important module is the live events. This is where law and fire, or OES, will work in the Zonehaven system to conduct those live events and to actually turn on the zones to different colors and actually push out evacuation warnings and evacuation orders. So how do you find this? Well, if you've got your cell phone handy with you, I'll give you a moment here. You can grab it and you can turn on your camera, and you can just face your camera to what we call a QR code there. That's that square digital looking box there that says Zonehaven Aware. You simply point your camera at the screen to that. It should grab that automatically and do a little drop down on the top of your phone. If you click that, it'll take you out to a browser window, an internet window, and it'll take you to that address, community.zonehaven.com, or you can simply type that into your browser and it'll take you out to the map. That is the community facing side of Zonehaven, that Aware side. This is the same map that we're looking at, showing the same zones, and this is what we can update in real time from our side of the system. The Aware side, the public facing map that you look at, this allows residents to search for their zone, and you simply do that by typing your address in the search bar at the top left. You type your address in and hit enter, and it'll immediately zoom you down to the zone that you live in, and it'll give you a pop-up window with some information about that zone, and that's where we want you to write that information down. Here's a screenshot of what that's going to look like if you were to search for your address. And for instance, let's say that you lived in Alta Sierra and you just happen to be in zone NCO-E042. This is what you're going to see on your screen. You're going to see that zone is highlighted in gray, and then you're going to have a pop-up information window. In that pop-up information window, you're going to have the zone name there. Below that, you're going to have what the current status of that zone is. At the time that I took this screenshot, that zone was in a normal condition. So there's nothing going on in that zone that we feel we need to notify the public about as it relates to evacuations. If this zone was under some type of an evacuation warning or an order or a shelter in place, then you would see that top section of that information window would be a different color. And those colors coincide to that other legend there on the left-hand side. So evacuation orders are going to be red, evacuation warnings are going to be yellow. When we're clear to repopulate areas, we'll turn those areas green. If you are under a shelter in place, it's going to be a purple color. Below that area is a quick description and summary of that zone in particular. It gives you kind of a description of where it is and what maybe the big landmarks are in there, maybe the 3 largest roads that are in that area, and then a quick summary that kind of gives you the boundaries of those zones. And then we're also providing a bunch of useful links. So each zone has different links depending on the fire department or the law enforcement jurisdiction that services that area. So if you were to click the see all, it would give you all the different links. For every single zone in Nevada County, we've put the Ready Nevada County dashboard as the top link. That way we give you a direct loop back to the dashboard, where in a minute I will show you some expanded information that we'll be able to provide to the public during an evacuation scenario. We will also list if there are any temporary evacuation points that have been set up. So if your zone happens to be under an evacuation order and you're needing to know where can you go, is there a shelter open? We're going to have those listed here. And if you were to zoom out on the map, then you would actually see the shelter would appear as an icon the little green flag there in the top. But really all you have to do is just simply click on the zone, and we're going to list out any of those temporary evacuation points right there in that little handy information box that pops up. So when will Zonehaven be used? Well, we're not going to be using Zonehaven for every single incident, just as not every incident calls for an evacuation or the use of code red. Ultimately, that decision is going to be made by the incident commanders, those law and fire managers that are at the scene, that are really the ones that are charged with making decisions about the resources they request or the decisions they make, like evacuations. They're going to decide whether or not we're going to use these tools based on the threat of that incident. And just a quick reminder, this is not a replacement for code red. This is merely a supplement. This system is not designed to notify you directly. That feature has not been developed by Zonehaven, so we are still highly encouraging people to get signed up for code red. And I'm going to jump back real quick one screen, and I'm going to show you that on this information box, we have a hot button here in the information pop-up for subscribe to alerts. If you were to click that button, that's going to take you out to the county's webpage, where it's going to give you the opportunity to sign up either for the county's code red, or you can sign up for the town of Truckee's Nixle at the same time. We highly encourage you still do that, because that's going to be one of the main mechanisms that we use to notify people of evacuations. So how are we getting this message out to the community? Well, we've launched a Know Your Zone campaign, and we're pushing this information out on multiple mediums, radio spots. We're going to have advertisement with a variety of newspaper sources, online sources, social media. Like I said, we just pushed out that Know Your Zone video on social media tonight, so it's making its rounds as we speak. As you see on the screen here, there's a depiction of, it's actually a refrigerator magnet. So we've recently ordered these and taken possession of them. We ordered 25,000 of these magnets to start off with. This is going to be a very handy tool for the public. And in the video, you saw that there was a gal filling one of these magnets out. I've provided the same QR code there on the top of the magnet, as well as the web address for that map where you can search and find your zone. We're really encouraging folks to utilize these tools. Once you find your zone, you simply write it in that white section on the bottom right there where it says My Zone. Write your zone number down and then put it up on the refrigerator where you're going to see it frequently. Maybe you see it a couple of times a day. We really want you to burn that zone name into your memory so that if you're away from your home and you get a message like that, you're gonna instantly recognize that zone number as being your zone, and then you can take action. We're going to be getting these magnets out to a number of locations throughout the community. We're working on getting those distributed now, and when we have those locations dialed in, we'll message out where folks can get these. Currently, you can get these at the Sheriff's Office here in Nevada City, and you can get them at the Office of Emergency Services here in Nevada City at the Root Center as well. But again, we're going to be pushing those out to a number of different locations throughout the community.
Lieutenant Jakobs, sorry to cut you off. Paul and Chief Wallen wanted me to remind you that you're cutting into their time.
Sorry about that. That's the gist of it right there. So I'll leave you with that. If anybody's got any questions, I'll be available during Q&A.
Fantastic. We appreciate it. So good stuff. That is an exciting tool to have here in our community. I'm continually blown away at some of the resources that are provided here in our little town up here in the foothills. All right. Next up, we have Lieutenant Jakobs' partner Paul Cummings back. Paul, we got about 10 minutes here for you to talk about what other tools are out there to use to have a better situational awareness as to what's going on out there in the world.
Thanks, Scott. Again, folks, Paul Cummings, Nevada County Office of Emergency Services. I'll try to go quick to make up some of that time. I think the gist of my presentation will really just be about how you can stay informed and build your situational awareness before, during, and after a disaster. So the first thing I'll start with, news and social media. This is pretty, I think, basic. I think we're all a pretty connected group, but keeping in mind, how can I get to Ubinet, Nextdoor, Facebook, the Union Online, Twitter. Those are all sources of information that you can fuse together to hopefully build your situational awareness. Next up, I want to talk about weather. Weather's going to play an important factor. I think what we're really focusing on today is wildfire, right? So the weather's going to affect the wildfire, whether it's being driven by fire weather, wind-driven fire events. So make sure that, and also using the weather to cue us to increase our readiness on red flag days and fire weather watch days. So some places that I like to go check out, NOAA.gov, NOAA.gov, and I find the NWS hazard summary. And so that's a pretty reliable place to see what weather watches and warnings and red flags are assigned to Nevada County. There's a list there. I keep it open all the time. I just hit refresh on it. And then it'll have all the details. It'll have a map of where that zone is. Nevada County is actually divided up into 4 different weather zones. So which weather zone is being affected, the duration, the scale of the event. So that's all important information. I personally use an app on my phone. I'm sure a lot of you have weather apps, but I like to use AccuWeather, ACCU weather app. And so I find that my weather app will actually push me immediately those weather watches and warnings before I've heard about it from any other source. It actually cues me to then go to the NOAA website to confirm what I'm seeing, to get greater details, and then to disseminate that to my network. So weather is important because weather is going to increase our fire risk. Weather is also going to increase our PSPS risk because PG&E is going to turn the power off when their infrastructure is being threatened by fire. Fire cameras. So this is another place. And what I'm building for you, imagine many safety nets, right? Many places to get pieces of information and to build that puzzle so that you can have better situational awareness to help your decision-making based on an event that's going on in your area. So alertwildfire.org, I'm sure all of us have seen these screenshots on Ubinet of the fires, but this is another great source of information to see what's exactly happening in your area. So the radio. Again, worst case scenario, the power's out in a large area due to a wildfire, public safety power shutoff. Most of our radio infrastructure should be able to continue, most notably KVMR. They're our 24-hour news station. We work closely with them. Our PIOs, our public information officers, will work with our radio stations to be pushing vetted information. So, have those radio stations ready to go and dial into them. That information is also listed in the ReadySeco handbook that everybody should have gotten. But again, a great source of information. You can have a hand crank radio if the power's been out for a while, or if you're in an obscure location. You can always get the radios from your phone, from the internet, from the car. So tune in to catch information that way. 211. You can dial 211 whenever there's a big event. 211 actually will bring somebody to our emergency operations center. We partner with them very closely. Our public information officers are pushing 211 vetted information so that they are only pushing what's coming from the county, and which is coming from our partners, our fire and law partners who are out there in the field. So 211 is a great source of vetted information if you need to know more about what's happening. CAL FIRE has a push text. I believe if you go to readyforwildfire.org, you should be able to get that, get to their main site and then sign up to get information pushed to you. I don't know what the thresholds are, but I know last year I was getting a lot of information about area fires from that source. So that's another great place to be immediately tipped of an incident. Well, back to 211, like the Jones fire or like for COVID, 211 will have a incident specific text message that you can sign up for. So they'll say text, such and such to this number, and then they'll start pushing you information. Find Your Five. So Find Your Five is a program that's we've had out for the last couple of years, but this is where you're going to connect geographically with at least 5 different people. They should be separated from your neighborhood to within the county to outside the county to maybe even outside the state. And what you're building is a mutual accountability network of information where you can share information around wildfire threats, evacuation plans, things like that. Code Red has been mentioned. I won't go into great detail with Code Red. The one thing I do want to point out with Code Red is based on where you signed up. So, Scott lives in Grass Valley. He's signed up at his address in Grass Valley. But if he's in Penn Valley and there's a fire in his area, he won't get that Code Red So it's based on where you've registered, not where you are. So you can get the Code Red app, and there's some functionality there that'll help you stay informed. And then we have some other tools that we'll use through the integrated public alert and warning system to try to keep you informed. We can push messages out over the emergency alert system, which will give you scrolling text along the bottom of your screen for the TV. And then we'll also record messages in English and Spanish and push those over the radio. We're going to use those extra tools for those really big incidents, those multi-day, many acre, lots of people evacuated type incidents. The last tool I'll mention as I finish up here is the high-low siren. The high-low siren is a great tool that was implemented over a year ago. We saw that tool in action during the Jones fire. Again, it's just one of the tools. It's one of the many layers of getting information. There were people who didn't get the code red. Either there was an issue with their sign up, there was an issue with the telecommunications infrastructure, the power, but they heard the high-low siren. So that's one way to know. If you hear that high-low siren, it means one thing: get your family, get your things, and evacuate. So at the end of the day, these are all just tools that'll hopefully work together to keep us all informed. There's not one magic silver bullet. You shouldn't depend on any one of them. You should try to use all of them together to build your own situational awareness. But what I think is important is if you feel threatened, or if you're being told to leave by law and fire, please go. Don't wait. Don't try to call 3 or 4 people or search a few websites. If you're being told to go, or if you feel threatened, just go. That's all I've got, Scott.
Good stuff, Paul. We appreciate it, and especially appreciate that message at the end, because we appreciate you sharing all those different sources. But at the end of the day, if you're being told to go, please do so. So good message there. All right, last speaker for the evening here, talking about our evacuation warning timeline and what to do if you are being told to evacuate. If you do hear that high-low, someone has knocked on your door, if you have received that code red, we are back to CAL FIRE Battalion Chief Matt Wallen. So Matt, floor is yours again.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me, everyone. As those of you that kind of know me know that I'm very passionate about what I do, and I take what I do as serious as a heart attack for this community. And just because I've been doing it 31 years, and it's getting very daunting that it's getting worse and not better. So no ifs, ands, or buts. I'm very concerned about this summer. And so I kind of wanted to just take a few minutes tonight to go into what I'm going to, mention the things that Scott talked about, maybe with a 6 to 12 hour plan, what you can do to best maximize your family's escape and their success afterward, as well as your home, what you can do to it, because once you leave, you're not going to be able to come back, most likely. So I thought I'm going to share my screen here and bring up, if I can do this correctly. Hopefully you guys are all seeing that. But I live up in Butte County, and but I've been coming down to Grass Valley since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. My grandparents both lived here before they passed away for many years, and have been part of the community in a kind of an indirect way. And in my time here, become very kinship and endearment with so many people that I've visited with. So I kind of just wanted to go through what it was like living through the campfire, I guess. If you see this at 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, that should get your waking attention the entire rest of the day. I would probably be close to calling into work and saying, hey, I'm not coming in. I want to give a little kudos to Chief Matthias. He chimed in a few minutes ago with Alert Wildfire org link. I think you guys can see it in the chat links and so forth, but that gives you access to cameras, and you can see stuff like this. If you see something like this, like I say, you should take it with a lot of sincerity. So I put together this quick little slideshow. It's about 2.5 minutes, and I may stop it in some places, but I kind of want to show you how this fire progressed toward my neighborhood, took my neighborhood out, took our place out, our home made it. And I kind of want you to look at the biggest question I get when I visit with people is, how do I treat my yard? And have a look at my yard. After the fire went through, I was not here when it burned through. I was more concerned with getting my family out to safety and left the house. But I went back afterward. I was off duty that day. And the fire chief that was there said the house pretty much stood on its own. They didn't have too much to do. So I'm going to let this play, and I may stop at a few places. So this will kind of give you some imagery of this incident. There's a little live video in here. This is about 11 o'clock in the morning. It's already into Paradise, Magalia. That's looking toward Chico. This is back at about 9 o'clock or so, this image from our neighborhood. This is about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I kept going back and checking on things where I could get a view of it. And at about 6 o'clock, it got into Butte Creek Canyon, and I realized it was coming our way. And it was in our neighborhood about an hour and a half later, 2 hours. And you kind of get a look at my vegetation in the yard before. A lot of chaparral, a lot of thick brush, although we had it kind of manicured. And here we are getting stuff loaded up, getting ready to go. And I honestly didn't think our home would make it. Skies are going to turn black. It gets very ominous. And this is about 8 o'clock at night. That's my yard on fire. We just got out of the driveway and we're onto the surface street. And this is the next morning. So I had gotten my wife out. She went to her parents' place in Oroville. I went back that night because I didn't want the fire department out there watching over my place. I said, go work on other homes. I'll take care of my place. So I went back out and monitored it through the night. And this is about 6 or so the next morning, 7 a.m. And you kind of see having clearance like I have here. That was all thick brush before, but I kind of made islands. My landscaping around the yard, I have a lot of bare earth, but I have some plants that are kind of spaced out. This row of redwoods made it. The fire came this direction. The redwoods actually probably sheltered the home a bit, but again, I have fire type construction, tile roof, stucco, soffitted eaves underneath. When I designed the house and we built it, these are all things just because of what I do, I insisted on. And there's still some smoke there from the next morning. But again, having this clearable space, it did a lot of, open space to divide up the brush, but it still carried. And this is our water tank. We did get a lot of property damage, but the main house made it. That's my driveway going in the next morning. Captain Mason mentioned having, you can't see our house from the road. Well, you can now, but back then he mentioned having cleared roadways so that the fire department has comfort going in to save your home. Ours was pretty tight, but we kind of had it that way, and then a lot of clearing out in the back. But that is something to be said, is your place may get neglected or overlooked if it's not easily visible from the roadway. And again, I show this mainly just for an idea of arrangement of fuel around your home. Example, these are chaparral natural brush that I've just broomed back and keep them kind of small so they couldn't produce a lot of flames. A lot of open space here, and it just nuked off here. This was a moonscape. Nothing left around the house. It came through here that night, I think about 40, 50 mile an hour winds. And nothing else around us made it. All the homes on our side of the street burned down. But again, look at that fuel arrangement in your yards. Keep stuff directly away from the house. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about a little bit on home prep. I'm going to kind of move this ahead. This was the neighbor's house. Then I kind of wanted to show you guys a little bit with, this is Paradise. This was a few nights later. I drove through Paradise. I got assigned to the fire, and these are the roadways. The cars are like that because they were pushed off the road by heavy equipment just so people could get through. This is, a lot of people don't get to see this kind of footage, but this is what I get to see all too often, and I'm really getting kind of tired of it. I saw this all last summer, and it's just, there's so much despair anymore when you see these fires rip through these communities. But this is what we get to see a lot of. And then these are some of the sad parts you get to see, people's homes. You know, they're not there, they're evacuated. Beautiful homes with beautiful views, leveled to the ground. Nothing left. So anyway, kind of as an attention getter, kind of, I think I came off screen share real quick. Let me get back over to the campfire, some of these documents. So let me bring this up to a full view, and I hope that you guys can all see the text. I didn't have time to put together a slideshow. Everything I did here was kind of done in haste this afternoon, but just living through that, this is speaking the guy that lived it, not some text out of downtown Sacramento or what we think we should be telling you. But this is, you know, there's a lot of good information out there, but I tried to keep it pretty basic, pretty real. So prepare for power outages throughout the day. When you're trying to do your home preps or preparing your home, you probably won't, if you're in the path of the fire, there's a good chance you won't have power. So if you got generators, hook them up, get your car out of the garage, park it in the driveway. That's what I tell my wife all the time. I mean, we have a generator, but then you got to go hook it all up, and that takes time and anguish and frustration if it's, you know, she's by herself or whatnot. Second item is prepare for cell or telephone disruptions or being out of service altogether. That's a 2-letter acronym there, Scott. Out of service altogether. Okay, don't count on your cell phone.
We'll give you a freebie.
Yeah, your text may be really erratic or delayed. That happened a lot in Paradise and the surrounding areas because the system was jammed up and overwhelmed. People were getting texts that were sent hours earlier and getting wrong messages. Have items bagged and ready to go by your doorway. We did this when I came, my wife and I got home. We went in to do our work for the day and got home we both got home around 11, and I just started packing stuff. I'm going, well, maybe we won't need to do this, but I want to have stuff ready. I don't want to be jammed up at the end running for our lives trying to think of what we need. So I kind of put things together, got some suitcases out, and kind of went through photos, grabbed the computers, any kind of cash or jewelry or firearms, small antiques or artworks that you really couldn't replace. Then kind of, and I was the organized one. My wife had a very hard time. She was so emotional that she was grabbing things of more sentimental value, like teddy bears and grandma's old, keepsakes and so forth. But I put down B is to kind of give you some kind of way of organizing your thoughts, is think of your daily responsibilities and gather items for those needs. What do you do in the morning? You get up, you take medicine, you maybe have some diet things. Think of the toiletries that you use and get a good assortment of clothes and footwear, because you may not have a home to come back to, and going and buying clothes is not going to be really fun when you've you're emotional about losing everything in your life. So take what you can within reason. Then pet carriers, pet food, or pet medicines. Okay, those are the things that I think we really do value the most, those A and B items. So think about those. And I can get you guys this list. I can send it to somebody if you want it, but make relocation plans with friends and family or hotel reservations early on. There's going to be an onslaught of other people doing the same for hotels and so forth. So make those arrangements, have a place to go. And do your kids, you know, if you can't talk to them, do you guys have a plan that, like your bug out plan, if you want to call it that, just saying, hey, if this happens, go to grandma's in Auburn or whatever it's going to be, that there is a default location to go to. Because I'm telling you, we've become all too reliant on communication. So I would have a sit down dinner with your families or pass it on to everyone you can, and just think of a place that, you know, that you've secured and got approval for ahead of time. If it's, you know, you don't want to be an uninvited guest, but have a relocation for everybody. Have your car fueled. You know, if you see that smoke column in the morning, I'd be thinking about going to the gas station right then. Again, call into work saying, hey, we got a fire in the area. I'm not coming in today. I got stuff to do. And get your car fueled up, and think about the most mechanically sound one. Have house pets ready to load and go. Because when the sheriff comes by and there's sirens and things and you can't get your cat because you don't know where they went, that's not the time to try and chase them down. So have them isolated somehow, or you can get them at a moment's notice. If you're planning on taking a travel trailer or motorhome, leave early as possible with that, or arrange to park it away from the fire area, again, early in the morning when you see that smoke column, so that you can have an escape. If you're going to use that as your escape location, you can have that set up there, maybe at a friend's house or at the Twin Cities Church or someplace. But we don't want to see that stuff on the roadways in an evacuation. It's caused major traffic issues, and that's even without panic people. And the way the cars were jammed up on the roads in Paradise, and people were trapped in their cars, we don't want to add to that. So if you got big equipment, horse trailers even, move them early on. And then a few other items. I think I'm still got a couple minutes. Home prep in order of priority for home survivability. So if you want a home to come back to, these are some of the things I would do to my home. If you have only a little time, this is the order I would go through. Get the needle, first thing is get the needles and leaves off your roof and gutters, away from the edge of your home. That's your biggest thing that's going to start your house on fire. If you have landscaping bark around the perimeter of your home, or even needles, and you don't have time to rake them, wet them down with the garden hose. Get them wet, they'll stay damp for a considerable amount of time. And that will prevent any little fire or an ember getting started at the base of your house that could get the whole thing going. Cover your roof vents or structural openings with plywood or metal panels. So the roof vents, attics all need to breathe, where they have roofs on the gable end, they have vents on the gable ends, or just look where you see honeycomb wiring and stuff. And you might even think ahead of time about going and getting some shaped material, whether it's plywood or metal, to plug those holes. Just take a quick screw gun and screw it on before you leave your home. Move outdoor furniture or loose combustible items, projects you're working on the back porch, anything that's going to be flammable. Get it out, get it away from the house, or put it inside the house. It's the ember cast that's really bad, that's going to get your place going. Move vehicles or wood deck trailers that are parked outside away from your home, or park them inside garages. The vehicles are really oily, and if they're parked on any kind of leaf material, pine needles, grass, vehicles get going relatively easy. They get started and the tires get going, and they're parked right next to your house. They get the garage going or the side of the house going, and there's not going to be a fire engine hearing that cry for help. There just won't. I mean, we try to do the best we can, but you know, vehicles, I've seen a lot of vehicles start houses on fire. Move your fireplace wood piles or stacked wood away from your home decks or out into the yard. When I went back, when I got my wife out, I went back to the house and did a little more prep, and I had some railroad ties I was doing some landscaping with piled up, and they were heavy, and I was in such a hurry. And I remember I just flung them out into the yard and just scattered them. I didn't care as long as they were away from the house, and they all burned, but they didn't burn in a confined area. So scatter that, get it away from the building. Many times fire departments, we may try to move your wood piles only if we have time, but also don't be surprised if you come back and your house has survived and your deck or your awning is cut off. We'll take a chainsaw and we will cut off pieces of flammable structural material as part of this structure prep. And you know, we're not going to be, this is done in haste right ahead of the advancing fire. So don't think that we're going to be remodeling your neighborhood just because we think it's coming. We try to be very cautious with what we do, because we don't want to cause any excessive damage. Pull away landscaping, border wood or wood fence adjacent or contacting your home. Again, that will start your house on fire. And then clear any brush or natural forested vegetation away from the immediate exterior. So if you haven't done your clearances, make sure that you try to get vegetation 5 to 20 feet away from your home. And, you know, put it in an open area. We don't care, just get it away from the house. Put it somewhere where you're not going to travel, or just stuff it back into the forest land, and it'll, you know, burn down, or we'll clean it up later. Get cleaned up later. Couple more things, and this is it. Exiting your home. If you're going to leave your home, shut off your air conditioning system. Shut off your propane tank or gas meter. Leave your electricity on. I didn't put that on here, but that's kind of mixed, but you can leave it on. We can take care of that, or because a lot of times we like to have the lights on if we're doing structure protection and we have to shelter inside your home for safety. Draw all blinds to prevent radiant heat from entering into the home. Fill the bathtubs and sinks with water if they're available, if water is still available. That way you have something, if you had to shelter in your home, that you could put out a fire with, or maybe a fire crew could use that for survivability if they had to shelter in your home. Identify water sources or hazards on your property before you leave. Put a little brief and obvious sign up with an arrow saying water that way, or I've got a mine shaft over this way, or whatever. But mainly water is what we're interested in. Set out personal ladders. If you have, you know, a ladder that can reach your roof, set it out so that we can use it in case we have to get on your roof quickly. To put out leaves or needles that are on fire, we can do that, and it may increase your chance of your house making it. Make garden hoses obvious. Lay them out so we can see them. Livestock and horses. I threw this in here because a lot of folks think that they just want to set their animals free. The animal will be much safer and have much higher chances of surviving if we keep them corralled. If they're in a well-grazed and, you know, a good 50 to 100 foot ambient clearance area, leave some water flow on for them, because a lot of times we don't get our animal rescue crews in for a few days to survey the area. But the animal, if it's in a good corral or a fenced pasture, we don't want wild horses and cows running across the roadway. And most of the time they get so scared. I've seen many horses dead of fear and heart attacks on roadways, you know, because they couldn't figure out how to get outside of the fence. And then last thing, just a little bit of knowledge. If you're ever trapped by fire during an escape away from your home, and you're immediately threatened by flames, so the people in Paradise that had to leave their vehicles and they were out on foot, just know that your best chance of survival will be to shelter in whatever fortified structure you can get into to get out of that heat and smoke. Know that it may catch fire, but by the time that happens, that the main part of the flame front will have passed, and you could probably exit that building at that time. But please make the report, because that's unlawful forcible entry, breaking into someone's home. But I'm sure that that person would embrace the fact that you lived by using their home to survive rather than shun that. So it's a little bit of a dire list, but these are kind of some pretty uncertain times we live in, and we're seeing, just in my short career, I've seen things I never thought I would see. So anyway, that's all I have, and I think we're just barely under time there. So I will stop the screen share and turn it back to you, Scott. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you so much. That was a lot of good info. Very, very sobering and very personal to hear your story there, and the tips for the rest of us who might find ourselves in a similar position. So appreciate you putting all of that together. We will get that list that we just reviewed. We will get that from you, Matt, and for everyone else out there,
okay.
We'll get that up on the coalition website. So we'll make that happen, because there was a lot of good info, hard to digest so much so quickly. But I mean, you left nothing addressed there. So good to hear you're thinking about our four-legged friends and family members as well. So we do have a few minutes left. We're going to open it up for questions and any follow-up from the audience here. I'm going to kick it off with something I saw from Terry Hastings in the chat. So Paul or Lieutenant Jakobs, great question. Can Zonehaven handle the volume for hits that will accompany a real fire? I'd be happy to take a stab at it, or if you guys want to discuss differences between Zonehaven and the throttle and such on Code Red.
Yeah, certainly. So his question was specifically related to Zonehaven, so I won't go down the throttling issues with Code Red. But yes, that was one of the discussions that we had with Zonehaven prior to actually implementing. We wanted the assurance that they'd be able to handle the volume of traffic that we would expect. Understand that Zonehaven has been in business for several years now. They actually supported the large CZU complex fire down in the Bay Area last year, and they didn't have any issues at that. They have assured us that they have redundant servers in multiple locations throughout the Western United States, so that, for instance, if one of their servers happened to be overtaken by a fire incident somewhere, they would have backups and redundancies there. So we have confidence in the system at this point.
Fantastic. And I'll also chime in on that if I could, and please cut me off if I'm out of my lane here, but there are many different things that Zonehaven does, and you had that amazing demo earlier showing how we can, on our own handhelds, check it out. But in terms of using Zonehaven to get out a code red or to direct law enforcement to a specific area, that mapping can be done almost instantaneously. So I think many of you know I'm part of the search and rescue evac team. And if I am standing next to Matt's truck and he turns to law enforcement and says, evac, E211, I am 3 clicks from putting that zone up on law enforcement's phones. And, or even short of that, if they don't need the map, that law enforcement can hop on the radio and say evac E221, and already on their phones would be an outline of those areas. And those are pre-existing, already in our mapping database. So we don't even need cell coverage or, there's no servers to be concerned about. So there's a ton of redundancy baked into this thing, and it's so impressive. All right, next to the questions here coming through. From Karen Barkus, when evacuating, is it recommended that our properties be locked and secured upon leaving, or should it be left unlocked for the fire department entry to be used for sheltering and or structure protection. Matt, can we kick that back to you, or Terry, if you want to chime in?
My sentiments are, I think I'd rather see you have some sense of security when you leave your home. If we need to get into your home to shelter, we can do it. We have ways that we can break windows or sliding glass doors to get in. I would hate to tell people that, just with the way things have been getting on fires. We do get folks that come in and they're opportunists, and there is a lot of looting. So my 2 cents would be that, but I'm not necessarily the pro expert on the LE side. So maybe we could get some commentary from there.
Could I, as they're thinking about that, could I follow up with that? Same question, but instead of my front door and windows, what if I live at the end of a very long private drive and I have a gate? Should I be leaving that open for you or locking that?
Yeah, I would definitely do that. That's one thing I did at my place, is I just propped it out. We have a gate, and I did that. I didn't want to restrict that at all. We want all the help to get in there as quickly as they can.
Fantastic. Anything else from law enforcement?
Yeah, in regards to theft and looting and stuff like that, these questions came up when we first launched the evacuation tag program. People had concerns about hanging a tag in front of their house that was advertising that they were gone. Obviously, there's no absolutes in life. We can't guarantee that there won't be any problems at your residence after you've left and evacuated. However, with that, I will say that during times of evacuations, when we're ordering people to leave their homes, simultaneous to that, we're calling in mutual aid law enforcement from all over the region to essentially just swarm our county, and then we are assigning law enforcement to different patrol sectors to look for things like looting. Beyond just telling people that they need to evacuate, we're looking for suspicious activity. So there's going to be a lot of law enforcement that's going to be in these areas. Again, there's no guarantee, but I would err on the side that Matt was talking about for access purposes.
And I can tag on to that, Bob, that fire personnel, we're pretty vetted anymore on what to look for on people that maybe shouldn't be there. And we will report anything suspicious to law enforcement to deal with. All the fires I've been on statewide, we're getting very honed in on that.
Perfect. Thanks. Next question. In an evacuation, temporary refuge areas have been said to be important. So places to take refuge while evacuating. Will these be identified on county maps? And then Matt, specifically directed to you, what should people be looking for in trying to find a safe refuge area?
I'm sorry, was that for me, Scott, for the TRAs?
Yeah, for you and Paul, really.
Okay, we need to be very, I think the latest sentiment, and perhaps we could get Chief Matthias to chime in here, but we need to be very careful with TRAs, because people assume that they get it mixed up with an area of being safe, that they can go. It's an area of safe haven, which is not. It is an area of barely surviving. We need, people need to understand that. So my understanding in the past couple fire seasons is we're not even using that phrase much on radios, and maybe for fire personnel only, because we know what we're doing and we do have protective gear. But I don't know that, I think we should have safety zones for the general public. But Chief Matthias, are you up still? Don't know if I see him.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't want anybody to waste any of their effort at all thinking about where a temporary refuge area could be. Temporary refuge area, we've heard everybody say, well, swimming pool, ponds, but all this stuff. What is going to kill you is not usually the heat from the fire. It's usually the superheated gaseous fumes that are coming off of the fire. So a little tiny clearing is probably not going to be the best place for you to be. So we don't want you to waste any of your effort thinking about a temporary refuge area. We want you to put 100% of your effort into getting out of the area. With that said, it's not a perfect world, and that doesn't always happen. There are very few people that are trapped by fire, but there are some. When we say few, that doesn't mean zero, that means very few. If you are trapped by fire, you've done everything to get out that you can. Matt already mentioned a few different things. A building that's somewhat close to you, your vehicle, don't give up on it. There's not going to be a wall of flame that's going to continuously burn for 20 minutes. It's going to be like the ocean's water and waves. Fire ebbs and flows just like waves. It's very intense for a little while, and then it recedes, and then it comes back and it recedes. So you will have windows of opportunity to escape. Take those windows of opportunity, try to escape, and get out. It's just that's what we have to say. There isn't anything that's going to be identified as a temporary refuge area because we don't know where the fire is coming from and the intensity. There's so many dynamics. We wish we could give you a definitive answer on that. It's just physically impossible. So don't waste your effort looking for temporary refuge area. Waste all your effort trying to get out and escape. And then when you can no longer, a building or a vehicle is your best bet.
Fantastic. Thanks for the clear direction there. So I'm going to rip through a couple questions here quickly before we wrap up. There was a question, should we disconnect automatic transfer from PG&E? No, please leave your power on, was the answer from Chief Matthias. Other questions, how do we get a defensible space in inspection? You can contact Patrick Mason at Consolidated. There is a link in the notes, and if not, it can be found on the Coalition website. Then question, are sprinklers on roofs using NID irrigation water useful? And from Fire, I want to field that one.
Yeah, I'll hop on that one. So if our fire engines that flow anywhere from 500 to 1500 GPM are not going to put out the fire, the sprinkler that you put on top of your roof is not going to put out the fire.
Thanks. All right.
Well, and then also understand, I didn't mention it I thought about it on the home prep, but if everybody's out wetting down their yard, it's really going to diminish the volume of flow that we are going to need and demand from the system once we start doing fire attack. Hydrants will not fill quickly, if at all. There may be a shutdown of the system. So to just, and I understand you may have a link right to the ditch or something like that, but it's all interconnected. And your efforts are far better in doing fuel removal than wetting down a roof. So get the needles off your roof. Most shingles, if they've been made in the last 20 to 30 years, have fire resistivity to it. And you shouldn't have any shakes in Nevada County. That might be the one exception, a wood shake roof, that I would suggest wetting it down. But otherwise, please think of us and the Army that's going to be coming to this area and the needs of the water that they're going to have.
Cool. Thank you. All right, last two questions before we shut down, and one I'm just going to cruise through. One says, how many days does a typical evacuation last? Yesterday's was a few hours. Paradise was the month of November, and in between would be Rough and Ready and, post Lobo and the fire that they had there. So it depends entirely on the incident, and I'm going to just leave it at that. And then last question here, if I could send this to Paul or Lieutenant Jakobs. Already Nevada County has a tab for route pre-planning, although it's not seeming to work. Shouldn't we wait for direction from fire officials is essentially the question.
Yeah, Scott, I can take that. Paul had to step off. Apologize for whatever reason you can't get the pre-plan route planner to work. If you want to email me offline, I can connect with you on that. As far as shouldn't we wait for direction from the fire officials? No, I would not do that. In fact, that's the last thing I would do is wait for direction, because we can't give every individual that individualized direction that you're hoping for. The message is get out and get out fast. That's why we encourage people to scout their route ahead of time, evacuate early and often, practice your routes day and night, because it's likely that even if the fire is happening at noon, with all the smoke that's going to be in the air, it's going to quickly cover the sun and it's going to look like nighttime. So you've got to get out and you've got to travel those routes. We tell you look for 3 ways out of your neighborhood if you have 3 ways out. If you get information that there's a wildfire in your area, we may try to tell you where that fire is and possibly what direction that fire is headed in. Maybe it depends on what's known at the time the message goes out. But when you get that message that you need to leave, you need to put your evacuation plan into effect and you need to go. Don't wait for specific information to come out.
Thanks for fielding that. We appreciate the advice. All right. So with that, I think we're going to close questions. Feel free to email them in if you have any follow-ups that you would like us to direct to the appropriate resources. So just in closing, I want to thank everyone for their time, especially all of our presenters tonight. We know that you are all just slammed in this current environment, and many of you have been deployed in the last couple of days, so we appreciate you being here. Just last thing, my usual shameless plug is that we are an all-volunteer organization. So the Nevada County Coalition of Firewise Communities, myself, the steering committee, and everyone who has a hand in it are all volunteer run, and we are always looking for people to help with the organization. So please reach out to me. You can reach out through the website or my email address, whiteshirtbluesky@gmail.com. So whiteshirtbluesky@gmail.com. We will be back a month from now. Our next topic is going to be evacuation. So everything these last couple of months has been leading up to, this moment where we talk very specifically about evacuation. So we've talked about the early warning systems now. We've talked about some of the homegrown neighborhood alert systems at our last session, and then having the situational awareness through some of the formal systems available through the county and online here today. So we will continue on this kind of chronological path with our very timely topic of evacuation on that next meeting on July 6th at 5:30 p.m. So with that, thank you all for your time, and we will catch you next month.